Craig Russell is joining us now. He is a local historian and a reenactor from Morrisonville, New York. Nice to have you here.
I'm happy to be here, Tom.
Well, thank you. You today are dressed as a member of the New York militia, but really you portray a number of soldiers from a number of different wars. Since we're talking about the War of 1812, though, this is for you one of your personal favorites because you often will dress as a member of the 15th Regiment, which we discussed with Keith Hercolo just a couple of minutes ago, was the regiment that was under Colonel Pike's lead and that camped here in Plattsburgh back in 1812 and 1813.
Yes.
And you also took part in that archaeological dig that we were talking about a couple of summers ago, where a lot of local historians came together and worked with Dr. Tim Abel to look for pieces of history from that encampment.
And we did find two buttons from the 15th U.S. Infantry, which was an eye-opener.
Finding a musket is one thing, but when you found those buttons and you saw the 15 on there, what was that? What did that feel like?
It was a defining point. The 15th U.S. Infantry was at Pike's Cantonment. It was Pike's own regiment, and therefore very significant. They had to have been there.
And as you were digging, as Keith had mentioned, you were going down, you found that nothing had been disturbed, so you found that camp basically left the way it was. And that must be exciting as well, to know that 200 years ago that you found it just as it was that day.
I found it surprising that it was in pristine shape, considering the fact that with all the work that had been done when the Air Force Base had been built in the 1950s. But it was definitely undisturbed, yes.
And for you and the other participants in that archaeological dig, that must be so exciting for you because you've studied this local history for so many years, and now to actually take part hands-on and discover pieces of it that are now in the Battle of Plattsburgh Museum must have been quite a thing.
It was a great experience, and I'm very happy that have been part of it, for sure.
As a member, a local historian, you certainly understand the War of 1812, the significance of Plattsburgh, but also I guess you, living as close as you do to the border, probably can understand and appreciate the Canadian perspective in all this, and also the Native nations.
The Canadian perspective, it was a defining point in their history, probably the first defining point, where Lower Canada, Upper Canada pooled their resources for a common cause. I don't think it had happened historically until that point. Native Americans fell in between. I think they got involved because I don't think they felt they had a choice in their situation.
And I think for many of them, they felt a great sense of loss. Under the British, the plan was to have all this land in the Great Lakes area. That never came to fruition, and I think they felt that they lost so much during this conflict.
Yes, they did. I think they were probably the biggest losers in the whole war itself.
Now, every September you are busy. This month is one of the busiest for you because of all the Battle of Plattsburgh commemorations going on. In recent years, the commemoration has included a lot more of the story of the war, as we discussed with Keith Hercolo, not just the famous naval battle out on Cumberland Bay, but also the ground skirmishes and the invasion of the British troops. And it seems that in the past couple of years, reenactors have taken on those roles to tell that story, to tell those stories as well, to try to remind folks about that part of the history.
Yes, we just completed the 3-day British invasion this past Labor Day weekend, where we want to tell that part of the story. There's more to the Battle of Plattsburgh than Plattsburgh itself. And getting those communities, Shazy, West Shazy, Beekmantown involved, I think it's become an effort throughout the county rather than just Plattsburgh itself.
It's incorporate more of the communities and also to basically expand the story that people hear about the significance of Plattsburgh and the War of 1812.
Correct, because there's a lot of interesting little vignettes that happened during the British invasion, and they deserve an opportunity to be presented.